Our boy was in a situation where he was standing before some judges, and a beautiful girl was impressed by his acting skills. She asked if he had graduated from a university theater program or studied abroad, but he replied that he had learned acting on his own. Another judge, surprised by his impressive performance, remarked that it was not the acting of an amateur. For our boy, however, it had not been that difficult. He then began to leave and requested that they not use his performance in broadcasts. He warned them that if they did, he would sue them, leaving the judges dumbfounded. The girl thought that it was a complete lie for him to be self-taught. Another judge realized that if he entered the jungle of the entertainment industry, he would become a monster. Our MC, whose name was Wujin, had been standing outside embarrassed because when they had suddenly asked him to act, that black square had appeared before him. A day earlier, before all that had happened, Wujin's head was dizzy because he had drunk too much the previous night. He could only remember up to the second round, when he had thrown his resignation at that toad of a CEO and celebrated his resignation with his friends. Wujin realized he was in deep trouble. Then his phone started ringing, and when he picked it up, it was Young-dae asking if he had made it home safely. Wujin's memory was completely blank. Young-dae reminded him that he had disappeared for about 30 minutes while drinking the previous night. Wujin asked why Young-dae had called. Young-dae reminded Wujin that they had agreed to go to Super Actor preliminary audition together. Wujin was confused, so Young-dae explained that Super Actor was a popular audition reality show by SBC, a major network, aimed at discovering hidden stars. He added that it had gained attention with participants ranging from trainees to ordinary people eager to showcase their talents. Wujin said that Young-dae used to say acting was just a hobby, and now he wanted to make a career out of it. Young-dae told him to shut up and explained that he had asked him to come because he had passed the first round. Wujin said he had lost all his memory, so he was not really feeling it. Young-dae was nervous and asked Wujin to just give him some support and said he will treat him to samgyeopsal and soju as much as he wanted after it was over. Wujin thanked him, but Young-dae was angry with his response. Then Young-dae informed him one of the judges is Hong Hyeon. When Wujin heard her name, on the next day he was blushing and had arrived there. More than half of the seats were filled. He was excited to see the top goddess. Wujin suggested to Young-dae that they sit over there. Young-dae was trembling with nervousness, and Wujin asked him why he would be nervous since he had even performed for free at an acting club. A few minutes later, Young-dae looked like a mummy in trouble and needed to go to the toilet badly. Wujin told him to hurry up and go to the washroom. Young-dae left from there, saying that if his name was called, they should contact him immediately. Wujin laughed and wondered if he would make it back in 3 minutes, but 10 minutes passed. Panicked, Wujin wondered if something had happened, why he was taking so long, and what would happen if they called his name. At that perfect time, the announcer called them both. As he tried to leave, saying he must have heard it wrong, the announcer again called them. He wondered if Young-dae had fallen into the washroom or something. Then Wujin apologized to the announcer, saying his friend Young-dae had just gone to the washroom and he would go get him right away. The announcer said his friend was up first, so they couldn't wait long, and he'd be disqualified if he didn't come quickly. It was a shame to get disqualified like that, so Wujin asked him for a little more time. The announcer started talking to someone on his microphone and then smiled evilly. He guided him, saying that it was fine if Young-dae arrived late. As Wujin opened the door, the judges were before him. Wujin nervously stood there as the announcer told him the first round of auditions was being filmed, so he requested him to wait, and they would guide him shortly. But Wujin was amazed to see Hyeon there, and thought she really had a stunning appearance. Then a man handed him a script, saying today's assignment was improvisational acting. When he looked at the script, a strange black square appeared next to it. He was curious and poked it with his finger. As his whole body started glowing, he was sucked into it. As he slowly opened his eyes, he looked around and was surrounded by darkness. Suddenly, a new script appeared before him. The script title was Unknown of Grade F. The script was approximately 10% readable. Grabbing the script, he wondered, could this be the script he received earlier? As some new words appeared on the page, he touched the option Frightened Man. The black square had completed preparation, and he had only implemented about 10%. As Wujin heard that voice, he started asking, is anyone here? As the reading began, the whole place transformed into a red forest. Looking around, Wujin wondered, is this a dream? He realized that it felt too vivid to be a dream. Suddenly, he sensed danger and started running as fast as possible. He had to run without stopping, but he wondered why he was running right now. Then he realized he was being chased. Suddenly, a man appeared behind him, telling him to stop running. His foot got stuck in a root, and he fell down. The man started approaching. He was crying and begging him to spare him. Suddenly, Wujin was shocked as the man stabbed him with a knife. The man was laughing at him as Wujin was brutally tortured. In the real world, he was screaming loudly as he fell to the ground in front of the judges. They were all surprised by his acting, but none more so than Hyeon. As Wujin lay on the ground, he wondered what he had just done. He was embarrassed, having unintentionally revealed his experience from the black square, and decided to run away as if it were nothing. With eyes filled with sparkle, Hyeon asked where he had learned to act. Internally screaming at how beautiful Hyeon was, Wujin kept a straight face because he needed to deal with his embarrassment first. Acting tough and putting on a brave face, he replied no, he had learned acting on his own. Surprised, one of the judges asked then, how did he perform so well? Wujin replied it wasn't that difficult, thinking let's not emphasize his embarrassment just because he was also feeling embarrassed. As he left, saying if they used his performance from broadcasts, he would sue them, they were left confused. They thought he acted impressively after briefly looking at the script. Hyeon said his claim of being self-taught was a complete lie, and so, the snowball of misunderstanding began to roll with only Wujin unaware. Outside, he met with Young-dae, who had succeeded in his toilet trip. Wujin asked if he had done well in the preliminaries. but Young-dae had been taken out in 15 seconds. Young-dae asked if Wujin had gone in instead of him because the judges were asking him about Wujin. Wujin had a sudden surge of embarrassment and told him it was nothing special. Seeing the script with Young-dae, Wujin asked to give it to him. As Young-dae handed him the script, the black square appeared. At that moment, Wujin was sure that if he touched it, he would get sucked into a strange space again. He read through it, and indeed, it felt just like the experience he had in the mountains. Now, he was certain he had chosen Frightened Man or something similar. He needed to check a few things, so he asked Young-dae if he had any scripts at his place. Young-dae replied that he did and asked, but why all of a sudden? Wujin told him that the smell was bad and opened a window to get some fresh air in. Young-dae commented that the guy who out of nowhere wanted to come to his house sure complained a lot. Searching through the house, Young-dae asked why he was suddenly asking for scripts. He added that for someone who usually doesn't watch TV, Wujin needed to check something. As Wujin expected, he found 2 scripts from aired network dramas. As he saw the black square next to these scripts as well, he had finished checking the first one. He decided to check the time on the second one. As he touched the black square, telling Young-dae to watch him closely, he again appeared in that subspace as he looked at the white square. It seemed to Wujin like the number kept increasing as he acquired new scripts or screenplays. As he decided to get out, he realized he was stuck there. Then he started shouting various words, and in the end, when he shouted exit, he was in the real world. Young-dae was confused by his actions. He was there for about 5 minutes, but the time hadn't changed. Then Young-dae's smartphone started ringing. He was talking on the smartphone and whispered to Wujin that the super actor PD was asking to speak with him. Wujin's forgotten shame was rising again. First, he lowered his voice and said yes. She told him they were contacting him because he came with a friend, but ended up passing. Then she asked if he had any plans to come to super actor again. Wujin wondered if they were trying to make a fool out of him, showing off and acting tough. He replied that he didn't want to go, and it was just something to pass the time anyway. Laughing awkwardly, she wondered then if he did it seriously, just how good would it be? She asked if he wasn't being a bit too honest. Wujin replied, what can he do if it's the truth, and told her she could forget about it. In his mind, he was begging her to forget about it. She thought if the broadcast aired on TV, he'd become famous right away. She decided to discard his audition footage. Wujin asked if he could get the footage of the scene where he acted. She agreed and told him to send her his number. He thanked her, and she hung up the call. As one of the judges suddenly appeared, she got scared, and he asked if that was the same guy from earlier. She told him that it was right, but he said he had just done it for fun and wouldn't come back for a second round. An idea came to his mind, and Manhwa asked if she had gotten his number. On the other side, tired Wujin lay on the bed. He still had a few things to check at Kim Young-dae's place. Due to a sudden phone call, Kim Young-dae caused a fuss, so he left. However, he discovered some critical details. If he was pulled into the black square, time in the real world paused. People around him couldn't see the black square he could see, and the word to escape that strange space was exit. Since he had confirmed the important details about that strange square, he decided to finish up what he was doing earlier. Elegant First Daughter and Thug Prosecutor are dramas that have finished airing. He decided to see 2 book scripts and 1 screenplay. Since he couldn't take a phone into that bizarre space, first he checked the ratings and basic details. The first one was rated 7.1%, and the second one was 2.7%. He was done with a basic check, so he went in to confirm it. As expected, he saw another one had been added. They were graded E and C. He was confused by the means of the grades. It didn't seem to Wujin to be about quality. Perhaps, he thought, it might be a measure of popularity or performance. He was surprised as he checked out an unproduced screenplay, and it was graded B. A B grade was the highest rating among what he had seen so far. Earlier, Kim Young-dae had definitely said it was an unproduced screenplay. He exited from that subspace. Now, he knew it was possible to confirm the grade of a work even before production. As he started by reading the content of the scripts that had already aired, his smartphone began ringing and his performance video, which he thought was filled with embarrassment, was sent. Still, he needed to check the evidence right after first entering the bizarre space. He felt like he was going to vomit as he pressed the play button. The video started, and he was screaming painfully in the video. On the other side, the same video was playing, and a girl, surprised by his acting, watched it and asked if they had ever actually been stabbed with a knife. He told writer Park Yoon-mi to look at that absurd expressiveness and asked, when she watched, if a character didn't come to mind. She remembered the role of behavioral analysis in creating a sociopath character. Yoon-mi was worried because it was a very challenging role, and she couldn't find an actor who could portray it. However, she wanted to see Wujin's acting with her own eyes first. On the other side, as Wujin watched that video, it was better than expected. He realized his first-round success wasn't just a bluff. He had actually passed because of his acting. He imagined himself with a poker face telling them it wasn't that difficult because he was a genius. And the judges, shocked, had said, "Is this a participant for real?" Embarrassed, he realized what he had done back then. Wujin thought they wouldn't see him again, so it didn't matter much to him, and he decided to finish the bizarre space experiment. There might still be features he didn't know about. Still, he really didn't want to suddenly get stabbed and die. The next morning, dark circles were under his eyes. Unlike the first time, his mind was less foggy. He remembered every single line of dialogue from the characters in the script, even the cafe male clerk he just read for. Not just the lines, but the character's 5 senses, emotions, everything seeped into him. Imagining himself with this level of skill, he seriously considered becoming an actor. It seemed to Wujin like he got to live another interesting life. Then an unknown number called him. As he picked up the call, it was producer Song Manwoo. Wujin remembered him, the one with a beard. Manwoo laughed and asked if they could meet as soon as possible. He stuck to the concept for now and told him to tell him the reason first. It was a bit awkward for Manwoo to discuss this over the phone. If possible, he preferred to talk in person. Wujin told him they could meet at 4 p.m., as it was the only time he could make. Manwoo told him a few other people involved were expected to come, and sent him the address. Wujin agreed and Manwoo thanked him. Worried, Wujin wondered why he was asking to meet. According to Kim Young-dae, he heard they were a big shot. He looked up how famous they were. As he checked the entertainment news, he was surprised because they were really famous. He wondered why they wanted to meet with him. He hoped that was not to ask him to act or something like that again. As he stood there worried, he was right. Getting straight to the point, Manwoo said yesterday Wujin showed them acting that wasn't focused on dialogue. He was curious about his monologue performance. As everyone eagerly stared at him, he became extremely nervous, wondering what kind of nonsense this was. He had a feeling, but they were really making him act. Internally, he was panicking because he only started acting yesterday. He just kept his mouth shut. Manwoo said he could do it by looking at the tablet and interpret it however he preferred. He realized the black square doesn't appear here. Without that, he couldn't get into the space. He guessed he could only use paper scripts. But there was nothing like that around. If he couldn't access the empty space, his acting skills were going to be exposed as a lie. Desperately, he cursed them and wondered what he should do now. Wujin thought that if he couldn't do that, his acting skills would be framed as fake. But then again, he wondered if it mattered and whether it was necessary to risk his life for concept acting. Wujin started his acting by saying today, and they were all intensely watching him. He continued by adding that he had been walking down the street and thought internally that he was just a commoner who knew nothing about acting. Wujin wondered if he should just be honest. He further said, while acting before them, that suddenly a cat had lunged towards him. Confused, they thought his acting was trash. Wujin then muttered some gibberish, and Manwoo thought he was worse than an aspiring actor. It was totally different from yesterday. Hyeon also thought he was totally different from when he auditioned for Super Actor yesterday. Yoonmi thought a first-year aspiring actor was 100 times better than him. He decided to just do it roughly and go home. It was meaningless. He kept acting tough. Wujin told them he was already caught, so they should stop this and let him go now. Manwoo wondered what he was talking about. Then he realized Wujin was currently acting like he couldn't act right now and asked why he was acting like he couldn't act. They also realized he was expressing his dissatisfaction to them through acting right now. Confused, Wujin also wondered how to act like he couldn't act. Wujin thought he had asked them to let him go, but Manwoo started saying weird things. Wujin thought, don't tell him that Manwoo came to that conclusion because he's seeing him as some crazy genius. Whatever. He just kept maintaining his concept and replied that it was because they suddenly asked him to act without any explanation. He added that it didn't feel quite pleasant to be treated like this. Manwoo told him to wait and apologized, saying to calm down. Manwoo was too hasty because he wanted to show his acting to everyone. He explained everything and requested that they please sit down and listen. He was relieved when Wujin sat down because he couldn't miss such a mighty monster. Straight to the point, he told them they were preparing for a new drama, and he wanted to cast him as an actor for it. First, he processed his words, then was completely confused, wondering if that man was serious. Yoonmi showed him the first part of the script. That was the first time it had been revealed to an outsider. She requested that he choose any role from there and act out that role. Manwoo requested him to please feel free to choose any role and read a few lines from it. Manwoo was confident that if Wujin showed his acting, the role had already been decided. However, they did not know how he would act it out. Wujin told them he would read it for a moment. Sometime later, they were shocked when he decided to do the role of Assistant Manager Park, the scene with a dog, and it was the sociopath character that she wanted. She thought it was not like it was appointed, but he chose such a difficult role without hesitation. She was confused when he put down the script and asked if he could do it without looking at it. He agreed, and she wondered if he already understood everything from the lines, the stage directions, the emotions, etc. Then, Manwoo said let's start right away. Excitedly, Manwoo was wondering what kind of acting that monster would present them with. Wujin had been silent, but suddenly his gaze changed, followed by his aura as well. They were surprised, wondering if he had really managed to understand how to convey emotions in such a short time. Wujin said to go first, then looked down. They were shocked when he changed his voice, saying it was dog poop. He returned to the subspace world. He had stepped on dog poop, and the world around him was becoming hazy. What had been ordinary recently had now turned into something resembling a fairy tale. He looked at the dog, which seemed as if it belonged to a world within a dream. Then he felt like he needed to act quickly. He said, "Here he is, son of a bitch." He raised his hand, saying, "He is cute, so squashy," and started touching his nose, which made Wujin want to pop him so it splashed all over. Wujin broke his skull with his bare hands, and the blood splattered across his face. Then, in the real world, he slowly opened his eyes. They were all surprised, wondering how he resembled the figurative figure so much. It was as if Assistant Manager Park was standing in front of them. Assistant Manager Park was someone Yoonmi had agonized over, sweating blood and pulling all-nighters to create. She had thought no one would be able to bring him to life. But actor Kong Wujin made all her worries pointless. For someone's acting to overpower the script she wrote, that was something she had never experienced before. Also, she had already written so many scripts that she was sick of it at this point, and she had seen numerous top actors like Hong Hyeon. However, she had never seen an actor like him before. She definitely couldn't lose him. Wujin took a long sigh, realizing that role really sucks. Rather, it was the personality of Assistant Manager Park, and no wonder he had seen such crazy colors. A few minutes ago, Wujin was holding the script profiler Hanriang, and he couldn't understand what they had been saying earlier. He needed time to sort out his thoughts. Entering the subspace, he felt relieved, but the situation was still driving him crazy. Wujin had learned that they wanted to cast him as an actor in a massive project, so he decided to resolve the matter first. Observing the white square, he reviewed the experience he had gained in the subspace and was shocked to find that it was ranked as grade A. He questioned whether grade A was the highest grade or if there were others above it. Regardless, he speculated that the viewer rating for this project would likely be at least twice as high as the grade C production, Thug Prosecutor. Though uncertain, he believed the script would allow him to experiment with grades effectively. He began searching for small roles and eventually found one. Since the main characters at the beginning typically held lead roles or appeared in many scenes, he decided to take on the small role of Assistant Manager Park. Then the subspace began the reading, back to the present. He was curious about how they would evaluate him. When suddenly Yunmi stood up, he was worried. She started walking toward Wujin, who thought she was a bit scary and wondered if she was angry. She grabbed his hands and requested him to please take the role of Assistant Manager Park. She smiled and added that it had to be him, Wujin. Manhwa thought Writer Park was too excited. How could she recklessly cast someone like that? However, he could understand she must have wanted to seize him. Overwhelmed, Wujin was surprised because she had grabbed his hands suddenly. He told her to please let go of his hands first, and she apologized. Anyway, seeing the writer's reaction, he realized the power of that subspace had truly been incredible. Manhwa told Writer Park to calm down because he had a few questions for Wujin first. Wujin had mentioned he studied acting by himself for Super Actor, so Manhwa asked how long he had been doing it. Internally, Wujin said it is only the second day, but he decided to answer vaguely. Acting tough, he replied he wasn't sure, saying it had been a while. Considering his skills, Manhwa thought it's probably been close to, if not more than 10 years. Then he wondered, how come he only showed up now? He asked, where did he self-study? Wujin thought that he also didn't know that. Manhwa said there was no way the directors would have left him alone, so he asked if he had studied acting overseas. He thought the scale was getting bigger and wondered if it would be fine like this. Hyeon asked if there were any circumstances in which he didn't need to answer them. Wujin replied that he would do that. Internally, he gave a thumbs up to Hyeon, saying he had chosen the option of secret circumstances that didn't even exist. He even appeared in Super Actor, so Manhwa wondered, it can't be anything criminal. Then they asked, why did he choose the Assistant Manager Park role? Yunmi was also curious about that too. Wujin thought it would be fine to say this much, but they were shocked when he replied because his scene was short. Yunmi thought it might be short, but it was 10 times more difficult to analyze and act out. Also, Manhwa thought anyone would avoid a troublesome role like Assistant Manager Park and wondered if he was a genius or just an oddball. Hyeon thought he was showing off while pretending he wasn't, thinking that kind of role was too easy for him. Our poor Wujin nervously thought, it seems like everyone is having strange thoughts. Whatever, he decided to run away first and said he would think about their offer. Outside, Wujin was wondering, no, just what the hell is wrong with that meeting room? Then someone called him. It was Young-dae. As Wujin picked up the call, Young-dae told him to meet at night after work because he had promised to treat him. He also told him to return the script and scenario he borrowed. As he pressed the lift button, Hyeon called his name, asking, why didn't you accept the casting offer right away? As he looked back, he was amazed by her beauty and internally was excited, thinking, I can't believe Hong Hyeon is calling my name like that. Wujin replied, it was just as I said, I needed more time to think about it. To be honest, he was putting on an arrogant act, so it would be strange if he accepted it without hesitation. Besides, if he accepted it immediately, he thought he would not look cool. She came closer to him and asked, are you with an agency? He thought her beauty was no joke and wondered, did she hear his heart thumping? Then he denied it. She asked, why don't you have one? He just didn't and asked, do I need a reason? She replied, no, it's not that. And again asked, were you actually overseas? As Wujin got silent, she realized she made a mistake. He must have his reasons. She apologized and asked, how old are you? Wujin was 27. She smiled and said she was 2 years older than him. The door was opening. She farewelled him, saying it would be great to see him again in the project. As the door slowly closed, he was baffled at how he had a conversation with Hong Hyeon. Sometime later in a building, they were watching the previous performance of Wujin. A man honestly said that even though he had been looking forward to it after hearing from PD Song, now he was sure. Manhwa felt like Wujin went beyond the realm of just embodying a role. He added that he had noticed how Wujin switched back to himself right after finishing the scene, as if he could switch effortlessly. He further said that even among exceptionally talented actors, there weren't many who had such technique. He admitted he didn't know whether to call him amazing or crazy. Now Yunmi became more greedy when she saw it. She hadn't seen such great acting and wondered what if he didn't take the role. She added that if it wasn't Wujin, who else could satisfy the standard? The blonde told them he had said he'd think it over a bit. He added that there were tons of top stars waiting for a meeting about the casting. He was sure that if they offered a role, those stars would come running. He asked if they really had to consider such an arrogant guy. Manhwa let out a long sigh and replied that he had been like that since the beginning. He added that kids these days called it the my fucking wayo attitude. The blonde shouted that even then, Assistant Manager Park wasn't a small role, it was a supporting role. Manhwa thought Wujin might just be trying to raise his worth, so he decided to give him time to understand his worth. The blonde mocked him, asking what appearance fee they could possibly give to a nobody like him. He hoped it was just his guess. It was the first time Manhwa had been this desperate, so he was at a loss for words. With a menacing expression, Yunmi just said one thing, don't be stingy with money. It was almost a threat to General Manager Lee. Manhwa suggested they should meet Wujin's worth. Lee reminded them that they also had to consider their production's position. Considering the potential gossip and rumors, they decided to set the pay above the average and include a confidentiality clause in the contract, slamming the contract on the table, saying this was as far as they would go. Manhwa then decided to call Wujin regarding the casting. On the call, he asked Wujin if he had thought about it, but Wujin remained silent. and Manhwa assumed he was pondering the appearance fees. Since they wanted to finalize the contract, they gave him time to think about it and suggested meeting tomorrow. Wujin agreed, and Wujin wondered what he was on about. He decided to ask Young-dae about it. Then he was in a restaurant handing over the script to Young-dae. Young-dae hoped he didn't use it as a ramen holder or something. Wujin replied he did read it. Wujin asked if it was true that the detective agency short film wasn't going into production. Young-dae agreed, saying an investor suddenly agreed to produce it, and they might have an audition for it. Wujin asked if it's produced, will it be released in a theater? Young-dae denied it, saying even numerous commercial films fail to make it, let alone a short film. Wujin wondered what if it goes well. Young-dae explained it would be winning awards at public exhibitions. So he asked which company is behind detective agency. Young-dae sent him a link to the film specialist community, where he could find information. Wujin thanked him. He also told Young-dae to imagine he was an unknown actor, and what would he do if he got cast by a tycoon PD or an amazing writer. Young-dae felt strange when he asked him that. In the end, he told him that for such a big project, a lot of actors would be willing to play any role, and such a situation wouldn't even happen. Disappointed, Wujin apologized to him in his mind, saying that situation was right in front of him. Wujin supposed that the unknown actor was him, so he wondered how much of an appearance fee he would accept. He replied that usually a rookie gets around 30,000 won per episode, but he would even accept just 3,000 won. However, for Wujin, 3,000 won was a bit low. The next day, Wujin was with Lee, who was acting rudely. Before entering, Lee stopped Wujin, saying this matter was almost like a first for him, like today's appearance fee negotiation. Confused, Wujin wondered if he was here to negotiate the appearance fee today. He didn't know how much he was expecting, but the amount Wujin was going to hear today was above the average. Lee honestly told him he was against it, since it was not good to have a lot of rumors from the beginning. So he was saying this to help him before meeting the PD. Wujin realized this guy was unexpectedly kind, and he was worried about him. Because of what Young-dae said, he hoped they'd give him at least more than 3,000 won. Wujin thought he shouldn't expect more than that. They arrived there, and Lee told the PD he had brought Mr. Wujin. He welcomed him, he showed him the contract, and told him to check it because there were a lot of complicated details in there. But what Manhwa wanted to talk about was the appearance fee they set for him. Looking at the appearance fee, Wujin was shocked because it was around 250,000 won per episode. He realized it was 800 times more than 3,000 won. He didn't know if it was pre-tax or post-tax, but it was more than his monthly salary. Taken aback, Wujin was frozen. Nervous, Manhwa wondered if he thought it was not enough. So he explained it was usually between 20,000 to 40,000 won per episode. He was a special case in many ways, and it was a shame to treat him like a rookie. The 250,000 won per episode, without separate from the additional fees such as reruns, YouTube, etc. If he appears in the later episodes, he will receive more than 10 million won. Wujin replied he kind of expected that. Internally, he wondered just how much top actors like Hong Hyeon receive. Manhwa was sure he will receive tens of millions per episode soon enough. And Wujin thought the thing that he only sees in articles or news would happen to him too. So they asked him, what do you think? It was not insufficient, but he was curious about his current worth. So he asked if he was worth only 250,000 won per episode. Manhwa expected he would feel a little disappointed. He remembered Writer Park. Now he knew that a few pennies aren't important. They must seize him. Lee was shocked when Manhwa offered 350,000 won. They asked, does it sound tempting now? Wujin replied he thinks it's enough. Lee was relieved but now briefly had some time to explain the contract because the entire schedule of Profile Hanryang is mentioned there. He started explaining to him, but Wujin didn't understand anything. He decided to just remember the keywords for now. Manhwa explained that when Profile Hanryang was released, the entire entertainment industry would come to him, so he needed an agency. Manhwa told him he would hand over the first part of the draft script today. He then requested Wujin to please do his best on the role of Assistant Manager Park. He walked out from the lift and couldn't believe it. His casting was confirmed. Wujin wondered if he was really an actor. Excited, he thought people were going to see him on TV now. He wondered if he would get a manager as well, and Young-dae had explained to him an agency had its pros and cons. A large entertainment company offered strong backing, but tended to be stricter, while a smaller agency provided less support but allowed more freedom. He wondered when he would get to choose an agency. Young-dae was suspicious when Wujin asked about agencies. As Wujin was saying he needed to tell his mom and dad, his mom called him. He also added he didn't have to tell their daughter. On the call, she asked if he switched jobs. Wujin told her he thought he was going to become an actor. She went silent when she heard that, then called him her son and asked if he wanted to go to the hospital. 2 days after finalizing the contract for the role of Assistant Manager Park, rumors about Kang Wujin started spreading in the industry as a hidden actor. Because Profiler Hanryang had a significant standing among various domestic production companies and entertainment agencies, starting with the production company C Blue Studio, the rumors began to escalate. Rumors spread across various places, including the media, entertainment companies, production companies, and broadcasting stations. With his name hidden, Kang Wujin was gradually gaining fame in the industry. Of course, our hero Kang Wujin himself was completely unaware of this. He saw the information posted on the film community link sent by Young-dae, but not all of it was verified, so it was hard to blindly trust it. Still, he saw an article about the short film, which seemed credible to him. Also, there were a lot of views and comments on that post. He searched more about director Shin Dong-chun, but there was nothing. All he got was the film company's location and the fact that they specialized in short films. As Young-dae had said to Wujin, the independent, short, and art film scene definitely seemed tough. He was considering giving up on detective agency, but that scenario was too interesting to let go. Besides, while TV dramas can be judged by their ratings, it was considered B grade, yet he was still really curious about it. He had heard that even top-tier actors start with small projects, so he thought he might try starting with something small like the short film. If there was no spot available, there was nothing he could do about it. For now, his only option was to go directly to the film company. He had finished reading the entire script, and now he had to take care of the drama. He decided to enter the subspace. Suddenly, his smartphone started ringing. Someone was calling him from the name Dukyu. He thought it was his sister, who had probably just heard from mom that he was going to become an actor. He was 100% sure she was calling to make fun of him. He wasn't even going to answer it, but the phone kept ringing. He picked up the call and shouted at her, but then he saw it was a different number. He wondered if she was calling from a friend's phone or something. He answered the call, and it was Hong Hyeon calling. Baffled, Wujin thought, the top actress Hong Hyeon is calling me directly? Blushing, Wujin tried to stay calm because he needed to maintain the tough act. With a change in character, he showed off and said hello. She replied that it wasn't the reaction she had been expecting. She had heard he had confirmed taking on the role of assistant manager Park. She told him that, since it was unexpected, a lot of rumors were circulating among the staff, and everyone was curious. He wondered, did something like that really happen? And replied, is that so? She agreed and told him that at this rate, he was going to be popular at the first script reading. Laughingly, she added that everyone thought it was a famous actor, but when they realized it was someone they had never heard of, it would be interesting to see their reactions. She bade him farewell, saying she would see him at the script reading. He was blushing from her laughter and thanked her for her hard work. She pouted, saying, don't force her to work. She is resting right now, and hung up the call. Our poor Wujin was completely destroyed by her. He thought, the people in the industry definitely react differently compared to family. Mom's first reaction would be asking, do you want to go to the hospital? And he realized his sister would laugh. He decided to find some information on the detective agency. Somewhere in a restaurant, Manwoo called out to Shin Dongchun. Someone told him he was really late, and Manwoo apologized. Dongchun was a little bit surprised when Manwoo told him the script meeting for Profile Hanryang had run late as well. He asked how many scripts had been completed. Manwoo answered, about 2 to 3 episodes roughly. Various finalized articles would be published tomorrow. But he asked why Dongchun was eating kimchi with soju, and if he acted miserable, his life would be miserable too. Dongchun replied that his situation really was miserable, so why pretend it wasn't? Manwoo asked if he had completely lost his spirit. Dongchun was someone who was from the same SBC drama department as Manwoo. So Manwoo asked if he had quit SBC just to make such weak excuses. With a dark face, Dongchun was listening as Manwoo said he had heard Dongchun had even found an investor for his movie. So Manwoo asked what the name of the project was. Dongchun answered the title was Detective Agency, and it was a short film. Manwoo had also heard the production cost was estimated to be around 30 million won. Dongchun told him it wasn't finalized yet, and the investor was from the entertainment industry. In exchange for the investment, they wanted them to include a few rookies and have Park Young-hyuk as the male lead. Shocked, Manwoo said even if people saw it positively, Detective Agency would become his cleanup project at best. Then Manwoo asked if he should introduce him to an actor. Dongchun asked if all the actors around him weren't top tier. Manwoo replied just because they were top tier didn't mean they didn't look at independent or short film scripts. But the one he was trying to introduce was someone else. Curious, Dongchun asked who. Manwoo explained he was someone they went through a lot of trouble to cast in their drama, and it was Kang Woo-jin. However, Dongchun said if he was involved in his drama, he'd likely be more focused on it. Manwoo told him he was definitely going to be a big hit, and they should give it a try. Dongchun agreed, saying so much had happened to him over the past 3 years. He was a bit exhausted. The next day, as soon as dawn broke, the entertainment field was on fire. All because of the full-scale promotion of Profiler Hanryang. The articles stirred public curiosity by teasing details until the premiere date. Meanwhile, Park Yoon-mi made it clear by saying this work would feature a truly standout scene-stealer actor. Riding the wave of the public's explosive curiosity and anticipation, the drama title was revealed around lunchtime on the same day. The news quickly spread, and soon it attracted the public's interest. Dongchun was happy because it was the work of a close friend, but he was also a bit envious. Today, manager Park from Go Entertainment was supposed to bring some rookies around 3 p.m., but they didn't arrive. He got up saying they think they're the boss and he should just give up. Suddenly, someone called him. Dongchun looked at him and thought he was tall and looked pretty decent. He must have been one of the newcomers that Go Entertainment was supposed to bring. Dongchun said he was a bit late. He said he'd come at 3. Wujin asked if he was talking to him. He replied no, that's not it, and asked where director Park had gone. Dongchun asked while they were waiting for Park if he should watch some of his acting. Dongchun thought the company was famous for having many unremarkable rookies, but his aloofness gave a certain degree of trust. Dongchun asked if he hadn't just come to show his face, and Wujin replied he had some performances to show. Dongchun told him the length didn't matter, just show him. Wujin started acting, saying it portrayed a sudden event that unfolded while a man named Kim Ryujin was running the agency on his own. One day, a client in his 40s came in and requested confirmation, saying he suspected his wife was having an affair. Kim Ryujin took on the infidelity case and observed the client's wife. As expected, the wife met with another man while her husband was away on a business trip. Kim Ryujin first followed the two, trailing them all the way to a secluded villa deep in Gangwon. From lunchtime into the early afternoon, the two of them spent time together as if they were a couple. But suddenly, the man's head fell into the soup bowl. Seeing the man, the wife called someone, and then a burly man appeared. He dragged the fallen man to a car, and then disappeared to an unknown location. Having only taken on the case, Kim Ryujin was stunned to witness a murder scene. He confirmed that the window of the villa was open and cautiously stepped inside. In the basement, the door to which was left open, a stranger was lying face down on the floor. After confirming that the man was still alive, Kim Ryujin shook him, but upon hearing noise from upstairs, he hid in a corner of the basement where some broken furniture was piled up. And now, Kim Ryujin was a fugitive inside the villa. The atmosphere was unnecessarily intense, requiring top-notch acting to make the villa feel like a hellish nightmare. Moreover, it was heavily focused on sound effects, making auditory presentation extremely important. Dong-chun was shocked when Wujin finished acting by saying, "That's all for now." Dong-chun thought that must have been a challenging performance. It was crazy. It felt like Kim Ryujin had appeared before him. It was a style of acting he had never seen before. Suddenly, a man appeared there with two actors, saying, "Director Shin." He was a bit late. He asked who was the person in front. Confused, Dong-chun asked if Director Park didn't know him. Wujin told him it seemed there had been a misunderstanding. Then he introduced himself as Kong Wujin. Now it all made sense to Wujin. After reading the story, he had been prepared to be turned away at the door, but he wondered why they acted like they knew him. Wujin realized that big guy was the person who was originally supposed to come. Dissatisfied, Director Park asked if they should just stay here. Dong-chun replied their appointment was for 3 p.m. Wujin felt things might get messy if they stayed any longer, so he told him he would head back. He had come because he was interested in grade B, but it seemed to him it was going to be tough. He looked at the two guys and added it was as expected. Both the lead and supporting roles were already decided. He didn't really want to take on anything below a supporting role. Dong-chun was desperately calling Wujin. Then he felt the name sounded familiar and wondered where he had heard it. After a moment, he remembered Kong Wujin was the name Hyeon had mentioned. He wondered could it be he was that same person? Somewhere in a restaurant. They were gathered to enjoy their meal. Then Manhwa got a call. He picked up the call, saying to Dong-chun he was in a meeting right now. Dong-chun told him the actor he had mentioned yesterday, Kong Wujin, with striking features and a cynical aura, and he asked if he had a deep voice. Manhwa also asked how he knew about that. They were shocked when he said an actor named Kong Wujin came to see him today. So Manhwa asked what that friend had done when they visited him. He replied they had shown their acting skills. Dong-chun said it was like he perfectly embodied a character he had written, and added no, the way he acted it out was even more vivid. Manhwa replied when someone watches his acting, that's usually how it goes. He didn't know the exact situation either, so he told him he would contact Wujin separately. So he told him one thing. Kong Wujin showing up to see him out of the blue meant the phoenix had come flying on its own. Dong-chun was surprised when he added if he let that opportunity go, he would regret it. Dong-chun asked if he was really worthy of such high praise from him. Manhwa explained they were both captivated by his acting. Besides, it was not like he had judged him based solely on his acting. He added there's a certain mysterious texture that's unique to him, and he's destined to become a top-notch actor. Manhwa said they had barely managed to cast him in their project, and someone like him had come to Dong-chun personally to showcase his acting. Then, he asked if that didn't mean he had a passion for his work. Dong-chun asked passion for his detective agency. In Manhwa's judgment, he replied yes. Manhwa didn't know how that guy got a hold of his script, but he explained Kong Wujin wasn't the type to travel far in search of work. It just clearly showed that Kong Wujin liked his detective agency. Manhwa asked if Wujin would go through all the trouble if he didn't care for it. Worried, he wondered if Wujin cared for his work. Manhwa gave Wujin's number, saying that considering Wujin went there in person, it should be fine to pass along his number, and told him to contact Wujin and schedule a proper meeting. He hung up the phone, thinking Wujin went there in person and felt a bit jealous at his age. Then he apologized to them, saying he got an urgent call and told them to continue the conversation. Hyeon thought they were talking about Kong Wujin and decided to ask about it later. Then she asked Writer Park what she had mentioned wanting to tell them earlier. It was nothing serious, and the clothes Hongstar sent over as samples were too flashy, so Yoonmi told her to tell the stylist to focus on making more casual outfits. Nervous, Hyeon replied that their designers got a bit carried away with it and said she would make sure to tell them clearly. Yoonmi also told Ryu Youngmin to adjust his diet before the script reading. Youngmin lightly laughed and replied that maybe he ate a bit too much sashimi when he went fishing and said he would follow it. He asked the director who the actor playing the role of assistant manager Park was, because there were some rumors, but nobody knew anything for sure. He looked at the script and was interacting with assistant manager Park the most. He asked for a hint about their image so he could practice better. Manhwa said it was a surprise and told him everyone would see the actor on the reading day, asking him to hold on for now. Speaking of the script reading, Manhwa requested everyone to listen up because he was wondering if they could turn the script reading into an opportunity to go somewhere nice to get to know each other better. On the other side, Wujin had come out from his bath and guessed it was safe to say detective agency was set and the main and supporting roles were confirmed. Both of them were insanely good-looking, and he wondered if there were that many good-looking unknown actors in the industry. He thought the power of a contract was stronger than subspace abilities. It really hit him now that he had just been lucky to join profiler Hanriang. Even though it was a shame Wujin had lost detective agency, he couldn't be overly fixated on it. Then someone called him, and it was an unknown number. He wondered why he had been getting so many unknown calls lately. It was an unknown number, so he put on a tough act, and it was Dong-chun, whom he had met. Wujin remembered that square-jawed director, but wondered why he was calling at this hour. He asked how he had gotten his number. Dong-chun apologized and said he had gotten his number from Manhwa. Confused, Wujin wondered why he was getting involved here. Then Dong-chun requested Wujin to meet him again, so he could discuss something regarding detective agency. The next morning, they met at a cafe near Wujin's house. Wujin arrived at the cafe, and Dong-chun told him to sit over there. Wujin was dripping with indifference, and Dong-chun thought there was something different about his presence compared to normal actors. Dong-chun apologized for calling last night, admitting it was still a bit rude of him. Wujin replied that it was okay and asked what he wanted to talk about. Nervously, Dongchun said it might be sudden and asked what he thought about his script. Wujin was silent, and Dongchun felt like he was confessing a hidden emotion. Dongchun melted down when Wujin replied that he felt attached to it and said it was a work of art. It had been a script that was always ignored, and he was truly happy because an actor attached to his work had finally appeared. A tear rolled down his face, and Dongchun felt like the wounds from being trampled on and ignored all this time were being healed. Wiping his tears, Dongchun thanked Wujin from the bottom of his heart. With a poker face, Wujin stood there, completely confused as to why he was crying all of a sudden. Wujin silently wondered if the word attached had been the problem. Even though it felt a bit over the top, he thought that if he was putting up a tough act, he should show some manners, so he had used that word. Wujin was surprised when all of a sudden Dongchun, the crybaby, asked which aspect of detective agency he was particularly attached to. First, Wujin lowered his voice to maintain the act, then began to praise him and calm him down. Astonished, Dongchun couldn't believe Wujin knew so much in such detail, as if he had actually entered the world of detective agency. He thought Wujin must have gone through the script dozens of times. As Dongchun clenched his fist tightly, he thought that just to clean up someone else's mess, he could not throw away an actor so deeply attached to his story. There was nothing else to consider. Wujin was confused when Dongchun said they needed to overturn the table. Then Dongchun requested Wujin to please take on the role of Kim Ryujin, the protagonist of Detective Agency. With a poker face, Wujin stood there silently, confused about the situation. While Dongchun begged him like a puppy, Wujin wondered if he had heard that wrong. Dongchun honestly told him that the film was, in reality, intended for film festivals like Mise en Scene. He explained that the Mise en Scene Short Film Festival was renowned for commercial films like The Godfather or Citizen Kane. Judges were esteemed Korean directors, with occasional top actors serving as honorary judges. The competition was fierce, with many new directors participating, and actors who won often becoming stars. Over 600 films were submitted annually, and making it into the top 40 was like winning the lottery. It was a battleground for serious filmmakers. Evaluation was stringent, focusing primarily on direction and acting. If no work met the standards, the award was withheld. In over 20 years, only about 10 works had won the top prize, making it a significant step towards industry fame. Confused, Wujin had never heard of it before. He just pretended to know a bit for now and replied, yes, to some extent. The film festival would be held in 2 months, and Dongchun was aiming for that. However, the production of Detective Agency wasn't looking very optimistic, and he gave a rough explanation of the history of Detective Agency. Dongchun decided to cancel all of it and start from scratch, with Wujin at the center. Wujin thought things were getting out of hand, so he told the director that there was no need to go to such extremes. Dongchun slammed his fist on the table, saying, it's not too much. With determination, he said, don't worry, he will endure them all, and told Wujin to just focus solely on acting. With fire in his eyes, Dongchun started shouting at Wujin, let's do it together. Internally, Wujin thought stopping him seemed impossible at this point. Grinning, Wujin thought that at least the goal had been achieved, and it was not a bad proposal for him. Wujin brought his hand forward, saying that he was looking forward to working with him. They shook hands, and he replied, him too. Dongchun's flames again lit up in his eyes before the confused Wujin, and he said he would definitely secure both a production company and investors. If it didn't work out, he would find a way to raise the money from his contacts. Wujin was truly on his path to becoming an actor. He guessed he needed to study by watching movies or something. Then his ego kicked in as he realized he had replaced the main lead, and though he must have been upset. On the other side, Guseob angrily slammed his hand on the table, saying, how dare he go against him? He was the CEO of GGO Entertainment. Guseob shouted that everything was going smoothly until yesterday. The man explained that he had gotten a call from Blue Vision Films, and suddenly, the director had scrapped everything. Then, Guseob called Young-hyuk and told him to pick another script. Young-hyuk replied that he would choose one. He was a top actor and said, it is strange. Why would he suddenly change his attitude? Now that he thought about it, Guseob wondered if that director, Shin Dong-chun, had cast another actor as the main lead. Maybe an A-list celebrity or someone higher. But that didn't make sense to Guseob because he thought it was a trash script that had been around for 2 years now. He asked manager Park if he had seen or heard about any other actors. Park replied that there were no other well-known actors. Guseob thought they were just interviewing for minor roles and asked if there was anything else that stood out. He added that there was no real incentive for a top-tier actor to act in Detective Agency. So Guseob assumed they chose a B-list actor as a safe bet over Jun-hyuk, who had caused trouble, and that was insulting GGO Entertainment. Guseob told him to keep a watch on Shin Dong-chun, go around independent and short film production companies, and spread the word. Park was confused by spread the word. So, Guseob explained to tell them not to put a single penny into Detective Agency, and that if he didn't have money, he wouldn't be able to start the project. He told Young-hyuk to pick another short film script, and he would support it to stand out better than Detective Agency. He told them to pick something that would win at the Mise en Scene Short Film Festival and make sure Shin Dong-chun hit the ground and regretted it. Hyeon was standing inside her agency, BW Entertainment, and typing on her phone. She had uncovered that Wujin was working on a short film with Dong-chun by texting Manhwa, and she was eagerly trying to find the name of the film from Manhwa. Hyeon was overjoyed when she found the film called Detective Agency. Hyeon wondered why Wujin would do something like that after getting into a major production, and wanted to see Wujin's acting in that short film. She was trying to act like Wujin, and was certain he would overshadow all the top actors once he made it big. She had no doubt the same would apply to her as well. She really didn't want to get pushed back. Hyeon entered the room of her agency, and the man there was just about to contact her. Before he could tell her anything, she cut him off and asked for a favor to dig into the current situation of a short film called Detective Agency. Choi Sung asked why she was asking about a short film out of the blue. He joked, asking her not to tell him that when she was about to star in Profiler Hanryang, she was planning to do a short film. She replied that no, she was just a little curious. Choi Sung shouted at her like a scared cat, saying that it meant she was interested. Worriedly, he said that if she was interested in something, she usually worked on it. She told him to even gather the smallest details. He replied that gathering info was not a big deal, but if the script wasn't good enough, it was tough even for him. Hyeon refused, saying PD Song must have had a reason, and also that Detective Agency was Dongchun's work. Then he playfully asked what he would get in return for helping her. She replied that she had been the one feeding him. He denied it, saying that she hadn't done it on her own though. He suggested renewing the shampoo commercial she had dropped, on the condition that the manager she hated would be replaced. Hyeon sighed in frustration, asking how the CEO of an agency could act like that. Choi Sung mocked her, saying the artist was just so unpredictable, and she couldn't argue against him. Choi Sung looked at her, saying he knew her sudden interest was not because of PD Song or Shin Dongchun. She realized he was quick to catch on. She told him there was a guy named Kong Wujin. He asked if he was her new boyfriend. She angrily replied that he was an actor. Hyeon quickly explained to him all about Wujin. He mentioned Ryder Park was wary of even top stars and asked why she was so desperate. Hyeon replied it wasn't about the level of acting, but her obsession with making it perfect. Hyeon was startled when he said, so in the end, she is just interested in Kong Wujin's acting, and she tried to deny it. Hyeon was again startled when he pointed out that she hadn't even read the script of Detective Agency yet. She tried to change the subject by asking how much money they had. Choi Sung realized she was changing the subject, so he asked, but he was confused as she started saying that if not, she would suggest he prepare some, and then started talking about Wujin. Choi Sung called her out as she was saying, after reading the script completely, someone would take it away, and he realized she was full of anxiousness. He had worked with Hyeon for 10 years, but had never seen her like that. He thought it must mean that the actor, Kong Wujin, really caught her attention. He wondered if it was instinct, ambition, or perhaps fear of being overshadowed in acting. He agreed to dig into it, and he was getting curious about what kind of actor Wujin was that provoked such a reaction from her. He started quickly checking on his phone, and with his connections, it was easy. Then he explained that it was a project of GGO Entertainment, but director Shin Dong-chun had scrapped everything. Now, they were upset and influencing independent companies. She didn't understand, so he explained that without funding, the production was going to be troublesome. Hyeon called him Appa, asking if BW Entertainment wasn't also preparing to start investing. On the other side, Manwoo had suddenly asked Wujin to come there, and when he arrived, Manwoo welcomed him, saying there was something he wanted to discuss. Yunmi also waved her hand at Wujin, and he wondered if that was a studio. It seemed more like an apartment building. Manwoo also told him it was basically the same as a regular apartment. Before they got to the main topic, Manwoo asked how he got his hands on the script of Detective Agency. Wujin was too tired to explain in detail, but there was no need to lie either, so he just answered vaguely. He said he got it from an acquaintance and asked if it really mattered how he got it. Manwoo denied it, saying it was just a casual question. What he was really curious about was why Wujin had chosen Detective Agency in the middle of the drama, as he found it interesting. Wujin asked if it was that surprising. Manwoo honestly answered that it was a bit of a gamble. He thought the role of assistant manager Park was considered B-grade and decided to keep it subtle, cool, and vague. Acting unbothered, Wujin replied that choosing it had been mostly driven by his instinct. He thought that was a solid answer and wondered if he was a genius. Nervously, Manwoo replied that his sense of humor seemed to be good. He thought instinct, or a good eye for projects, was essential. For an actor, it was a key quality. He wondered if that was really the case, then Detective Agency would definitely succeed. Manwoo asked if it was the instinct that Detective Agency would be a hit. Wujin wondered why Manwoo was shocked and thought it was a common word used everywhere. He agreed, saying it would not fail and would be a hit. Yunmi asked if it wasn't a bit reckless and said she was sure this was the most important time for him though. Nonchalantly, Wujin asked if that was so. Yunmi was shocked, thinking why he was so calm and that there was no other actor like him in this world. Manwoo thought that if someone joined a big project, they would take their time to choose another project. He was surprised by how Wujin had chosen a short film script that everyone had ignored. If Detective Agency really turned out to be a hit, Manwoo was sure Wujin would grow into a great actor with crazy acting, a different level of quality, confidence, and even acute intuition. Manwoo laughed, saying he would have to consult Wujin to choose a script when he started his own production company in the future. Yunmi excitedly asked what he thought about their Profiler Hanryang. Wujin said if it was the two of them, and asked if it wasn't guaranteed to be a hit. Shocked, Yunmi explained that drama was risky even with a lot of top actors. Wujin still thought Profiler Hanryang was displayed as a grade A in the subspace. So Wujin said he joined because he thought it was going to be a hit. She blushed, saying maybe that was why people believed in religion. Manwoo calmed Ryder Park down by saying they hadn't called Mr. Wujin there to ask him that. Taking out the script, Yunmi told him they had called her there to give him the official script book of Part 1, and the others would be sent as soon as they were out. Handing over the script to Wujin, she thanked him for acting as Park, and since the script had been revised, she requested him to go through it again. Manwoo told Wujin the script reading would be done in the MT way. Wujin thought it was something where the genius actors sync with each other before the real shooting begins. Manwoo explained script reading was just a formality. It was when actors and the entire staff gathered to have fun. Wujin realized he was going to play with celebrities and internally screamed, feeling his life had risen to a grand scale. Manwoo told him it would start on Saturday and last 2 days and 1 night. He asked if Wujin would be able to join them, to which Wujin agreed. Manhwa advised him to know the script inside out before coming. Before Manhwa could continue, Wujin's phone rang. He picked it up and apologized to the director. Manhwa said he should answer it if it was urgent. It was Dong-chun, asking for a meeting to discuss detective agency. Wujin agreed, and Manhwa assumed it must be Dong-chun. Manhwa then mentioned the casting for detective agency was finished and asked when the date for his script reading would be. Wujin was internally confused, and then replied that currently no one else had been cast except him. Manhwa was surprised and wondered if actress Hyeon hadn't contacted them yet, though he was sure Hyeon was interested in detective agency. Manhwa decided to arrange things for Wujin and asked where the meeting with Dong-chun would take place. Sometime later, Dong-chun had hurriedly borrowed a place and requested Wujin to sit. He explained he had looked for film companies and investors, but told him it wasn't easy. Dong-chun assumed it was because of Geo Entertainment. He apologized because the situation didn't look good. Wujin thought he resembled him when his draft was rejected for the 6th time. Wujin asked if there was something he could help with. Dong-chun told him to just focus on acting and said he would do whatever it took to secure the investment. Dong-chun mentioned leaving out some scenes to attract investors. Wujin asked if the quality wouldn't drop as well. Dong-chun apologized and hadn't expected the situation to turn out like this. He anxiously wondered if it would stay as a movie that could never be produced. Then a girl appeared there, removing her mask and asking if he was a director now. It was Hyeon, wanting to take part in the detective agency short film. They were surprised when they saw Hyeon. Wujin looked at her with a poker face, but internally he screamed, wondering how a top actress had come here out of the blue wanting to work on a short film. Hyeon was disappointed because Wujin was not even surprised and asked if he perhaps expected her to work in the detective agency. Internally, he replied, "Of course not." First, he composed himself and lowered his voice, then replied that he was surprised. She exclaimed he was funny, saying that with no expression at all. Wujin wondered how Hong Hyeon knew about it and remembered Manhwa. He asked, did Manhwa tell her about it? She agreed, saying she was going to contact him anyway. Wujin asked if she was joking about working on the detective agency short film. She pouted, saying that even though she might look like she was playing around, she was serious. Then he coldly said she could do it if she wanted to. It didn't matter. She agreed, saying it was a deal. Dong-chun asked if she was really going to act in detective agency. He apologized because it was hard for him to believe it. She agreed, saying if he was okay with it, she wanted to play the wife role. He told her the wife role was just a supporting role, and the short film would be exhibited at the Short Film Festival. Moreover, it was impossible for him to match her appearance fee. Showing him her credit card, Hyeon told him not to worry about investors. She added that he would receive the details if he contacted her CEO. She requested him to maintain secrecy about her appearance in the film until its release. Then, she asked Wujin why he chose detective agency. It was the same question again, so he decided to give the same answer and replied it was because of his instinct. She exclaimed that it was ridiculous and asked if he realized he was kind of a freak. He replied that he wasn't sure. She smiled and left from there, saying she will know it if she watched him, and let's stay in touch. There was an awkward silence between Wujin and Dong-chun. Afterward, Dong-chun began shouting like a mob in a game, but Wujin simply ignored him. Wujin daydreamed about Hyeon asking him to stay in touch, like a friend. Sometime later, Wujin lay on his bed, saying he would be working on 2 projects in a row with Hyeon. He smugly imagined Young-dae's reaction upon hearing it. Suddenly, he felt motivated and picked up the script, saying he should experience all the roles in Profiler Hanryang. As he grabbed the official script book, a black square appeared next to it, and he entered the subspace. Since the Profiler Hanryang script list had been updated, he could delete the existing ones. He was surprised to see it recognize the draft script and official script as 2 separate things. It added a plus to the A grade, and he wondered if A+ was above grade A. Then above that, would it be A++ or S? Wujin realized the quality increased as they made revisions. Since he lacked knowledge in this part, he needed to gain something impressive if he wanted to maintain his tough act among those top actors. His goal was to read through all the characters, and the reading began. On the other side, near a beautiful villa, Dong-chun was making a contract with an old man who asked him what he was planning to use it for. Dong-chun replied that it was for a filming location for a movie. Now, he wanted to share the good news with Wujin, but then he remembered that the script reading for Profiler Hanryang was scheduled for that day. Wujin stood before the meeting location, thinking there were really a lot of people there. A guard stopped him and asked if he was part of the team. Wujin, surprised, inquired whether the guard was asking him. Suddenly, Hyeon appeared and told the guard that he was a staff member for Profiler Hanryang. The guard recognized Hyeon and then gave them permission to proceed that way. Hyeon whispered in his ear, asking him to pretend he didn't know anything for now, and said they were going to surprise them later. She added that he seemed not to care too much about what others thought, and asked if those clothes were a bit too comfortable. With a shabby look, he replied that he had just dressed moderately. Since he was learning things, she told him to pay attention to managing his image from now on. Hyeon thought that it wouldn't do and asked Wujin why he was using such a nice visual like that. She mentioned that she would do basic makeup for him, and asked him to come with her for a moment. Our poor Wujin was completely lost for words. Sometime later, they entered there, and Hyeon said that it was definitely much better than earlier. Internally, Wujin wondered if this was a dream, that the day had come when Hong Hyeon was personally doing his makeup. Wujin looked at others, noticed that more people were there than he had expected, and then started feeling nervous. He was trying to stay calm, thinking that they were all just the same. While Hyeon was talking with others, Wujin stood there like an invisible man. He decided to hide behind Hong Hyeon to buy some time. Taking deep breaths, he tried to manage his expression. Then, Hyeon started talking with Young-hyuk about the after-party, and Wujin recognized that voice. He thought that Young-min was very handsome, and that the vibe he was giving off was on a totally different level. Then, Young-hyuk asked her if she had seen the actor who plays the role of Manager Park. She chuckled and replied that she didn't think so. Like a mob character, Wujin internally said that the actor was right in front of him. Young-hyuk asked Wujin if he was the manager and complimented him, saying that he looked handsome and his physique was nice too. He then told Hyeon that he was too talented to just be a manager. She joked about whether they should try making him an actor. Wujin was angry, but let it slide since Young-hyuk had called him handsome. He came closer to Wujin's face, saying that he should really try acting, and that his looks were just too good to not make use of. Wujin thought that Young-hyuk's looks were insane. He looked away while saying that this person was so chic, that he had a certain vibe, and wondered if he was nervous. Wujin internally panicked, realizing he had been so distracted by his looks that he forgot to respond. But when Wujin tried to respond, Young-hyuk quickly ran away upon seeing Manhwa and writer Park Yoon-mi, as he needed to greet them. As Wujin was completely stupefied, Hyeon called him over and pointed to the desk of Assistant Manager Park, telling him to go ahead and sit there. She added that although he might not be nervous, he should try not to get intimidated too. While Wujin was trying to get his mind under control again, Young-hyuk asked the director about Assistant Park, saying that he wasn't there and asked if it could be that he wasn't coming. Manhwa looked at Wujin and asked if he wasn't already there. Confused, Young-hyuk looked back, and everyone was shocked as they looked at Wujin. Then, Young-hyuk realized that the person who was Hyeon's manager was the actor playing Assistant Manager Park. Wujin looked at them and introduced himself, saying he was playing the role of Assistant Manager Park. Everyone had suddenly stared at him, so he had started doing a concept introduction and wondered if that was the right thing to do. The other people exchanged looks, commenting that it was the first time they had seen him, and they realized he was an unknown actor. Manhwa officially announced to everyone that the actor playing Assistant Park was Wujin and started the opening of the first part of the script. Young-hyuk asked him if he didn't usually avoid casting newcomers. From what he saw, he thought his reactions were a bit stiff and told him that his acting might come across as bland. Manhwa told him that he would see for himself and instructed him to just go and take his seat. Young-hyuk agreed, and Manhwa had expected that everyone would have a lot of questions regarding Wujin. In that case, he decided to show them himself, and they started the reading. Wujin was relieved when it finally began. Manhwa started narrating Scene 1. The drama took place in 2010, in the mountains, during the morning. Police officers were swarming and positioned throughout the forest. Among them, Assistant Park was a major character in the first episode. The first scene began with the discovery of a dead body of a man in his SOS on a mountain. Then Young-hyuk started his acting. According to the setting, he was a genius who led a carefree life, so he was known as the Carefree Genius. Next was the female lead, passionate detective Jong Yun-hee, and Hyeon also started her acting. Wujin thought that even though it was just a reading, the intensity was definitely strong. Both the character who had delivered the lines just now and the one who was whispering now seemed to deliver the lines a bit casually. He added that it should be emphasized there. The character was feeling desperate. He wondered why the delivery was so dull. When he had experienced it, it hadn't felt like this. Manhwa told Taesan that the line was a bit flat and suggested adding some emphasis. Yoon-mi also told him that the character analysis was incorrect and that the energy was so drained. Wujin thought that he was right, that the actor's performance had been off from the start. Wujin may not know the female roles, but the roles he had experienced were all just as he had imagined and thought that he could be compared to the performances of other actors. Wujin was surprised when he realized that reading could be surprisingly enjoyable. As others were acting and saying their lines, Manhwa and Yoon-mi were correcting them and instructing them how it would be better. Since Park's first appearance was a solo performance without any partner, Manhwa told Wujin to capture the essence moderately. This was just to align the tone for the progression of the play. Wujin agreed, saying that he would keep it moderate, but he wondered what moderate really meant. Wujin wasn't sure. Since he was sitting anyway, he decided to minimize his movements and focus on expressing himself properly. He concentrated solely on the experiences of Assistant Park that he had seen, handled, and felt directly, reducing his movements slightly to achieve a moderate outcome. He had done this reading and experienced it dozens of times, thoroughly understanding and absorbing it. Then, a second Wujin appeared behind him and covered his eyes. Then, with a maniacal smile, Wujin became Assistant Park. He glanced to his right, and everyone was amazed by his acting as they watched him. When Wujin glanced to his left, Hyeon, shocked, wondered if the intensity of his acting had suddenly become much stronger compared to before. With his strange eyes, Wujin looked forward, leaving Young-hyuk completely baffled. Then Wujin opened his mouth and said, "There he is," and added with a creepy smile, "The bastard." Young-hyuk was completely petrified. A drop of sweat rolled down his face as he clenched his teeth, internally exclaiming whether this could really be called moderate acting. He wondered how someone could switch their emotions completely like that. Young-hyuk was trying to control his trembling and wondered how much analysis and practice one would need to achieve that level of acting. He doubted whether it was even possible to achieve that through practice alone. Young-hyuk thought that right now, it was ambiguous to even call him an actor. He was Mr. Park himself, a sociopath with pleasure in sight, just like Mr. Park. Manhwa said that part 1 was over. Then they moved on to part 2 in the interrogation room, where Yoo Ji-hyung and Mr. Park were confronting each other. Young-hyuk was surprised when he saw that Wujin wasn't even looking at the script, and wondered if he thought there was no need to even look at it. He thought that with how Wujin had acted as Manager Park just now, he must have analyzed and memorized the script like crazy. Young-hyuk started acting and saying his lines, but Wujin confidently began saying his lines with great acting. Young-hyuk realized that he really dove into the acting process quickly. While they were both saying their lines, Young-hyuk understood why he was sitting there, and he thought that probably not just he, but everyone there likely understood as well. Young-hyuk wondered how he could be so calm after showing such an impressive performance, and whether that level of acting meant nothing to him. The old man near him called his name, and Young-hyuk looked at him. The old man told him not to lose focus and mentioned that the person had captivated everyone with just one performance, controlling the flow as he pleased. The old man believed that the person was no rookie and must have had a great past. The old man asked where such an outrageous person had come from and advised him to stay focused. Otherwise, Young-hyuk's expression became stiff when the old man asked if he didn't think he would be overshadowed by his acting. A few hours later, the script reading was over. Everyone had worked hard, so they had prepared a lot for the upcoming after-party. Manhwa also told them that if they just wanted to relax, they could comfortably stay in their rooms. Nearby, two girls were getting chills from Wujin's acting, as if they were facing Assistant Manager Park. The mood was very heavy, and they wondered if he was trying to recover his emotions at that moment. But Wujin was just hungry and decided to make sure to feast on a lot of meat during the after-party. He saw everyone slowly leaving, and was deciding whether he should get going too or stay behind for a bit longer, when suddenly someone tapped on his shoulder. It was a girl with a microphone introducing herself as part of the making team. She apologized for bothering him when he must be tired, but she wanted to ask him a few questions. Wujin was just as confused by the term making team as we are. Wujin had seen them on YouTube, how they filmed, and he was starting to get nervous again, but he agreed. Like always, Wujin stood there silently, listening with a poker face, as she asked how much analysis and practice it took him to grasp the hidden meanings behind the lines, considering that the role of Assistant Manager Park was quite challenging. Wujin thought he better respond to the question using some professional terminology. If he answered it too vaguely, they might think of him as an amateur. So, he decided to subtly steer the conversation towards social life. Yoonmi was touched when he replied that he just thought the script was great. As the reporter asked him if he was part of some theater troupe or had been honing his acting skills all this time, he became confused, wondering if it was just his imagination or if it felt like everyone was looking at him, as if they were waiting for his answer or something. He thought it must just be his imagination and denied it, saying that he was self-taught. They were confused by his response and fell silent. Then she screamed, asking if he was serious. Wujin was confused, thinking about why they were reacting like that, and he agreed, saying that he was self-taught. The people around him couldn't believe that someone could achieve that quality of acting by self-studying. Young-hyuk, also confused, couldn't believe it, while Hong Hyeon was grinning because of their reactions. They were looking at him intensely, and Wujin had no idea why he felt like the vibe had changed. He wondered if he had come off as a bit arrogant, but he wasn't lying. He felt nervous, so he decided to escape slowly by apologizing and saying that he was not very good at expressing himself. They all watched him confusingly and silently as he left. Hong Hyeon was watching him when a man followed him, asking him to wait. She guessed that the head of BHM Entertainment was there to offer him a contract. Then, suddenly, Choi Sung asked her if what he had said earlier was true. She agreed, saying that he probably wouldn't find anything even with his connections in the industry. She added that acting was just a hobby for him, and that he even participated in Super Actor just for fun. Choi Sung said that acting isn't just a memorization subject. He asked what about overseas. She replied that his past was unclear, and that he had some kind of situation going on. She then asked what he thought after seeing him in person. He answered that he could see why she was so captivated. Choi Sung honestly said that his first impression of him was just average, but it was different now. He explained that the visible acting was smooth and neat, with no sense of dissonance. He wasn't simply mimicking or reading what was written on the page. He had never seen an actor like that. The guy was a monstrous genius. He added that it was something everyone would envy. She told him that all the entertainment companies there were probably drooling over Wujin right now. By then, there were probably quite a few entertainment companies that had handed Wujin their business cards. She asked if he was just going to sit there like that. He confidently replied that there was no way. He also envied that talent and knew he needed to make a move to get him. Sometime later, at the dinner party, everyone was talking about Wujin. Young-hyuk, hearing them, thought that Kang Wujin was an actor of a kind he had never seen before, and he couldn't even gauge his potential. The role of Assistant Manager Park would be a highlight in anyone's acting career, but he thought about what that self-taught actor had done. Then, Young-hyuk heard a couple bad-mouthing Wujin, saying that as a newcomer, he should at least attend the company dinner, and that he had already become arrogant just because he could act a bit. Young-hyuk said that in his eyes, Wujin was more like a monster than someone who could act a bit. He added that the PD had said attendance at the dinner was optional, and if he was tired, he could skip it. The girl was nervous as Young-hyuk continued, saying that after bringing out such deep emotions, those feelings couldn't just be cleared up in a few hours. Attending the dinner would be a burden. The old man agreed, saying that Wujin probably had to undergo a lot of meditation. Young-hyuk further added that Wujin must be feeling like a mess, and talking to others in such a state would make it difficult for everyone. Then another girl said she had experiences like that too. When emotions run high, she tended to get annoyed at people for no reason. They were both ashamed and looked away as Young-hyuk continued, saying that Wujin was probably trying to recover from his own emotions, and that everyone had experienced the difficulty of emotional recovery. As she tried to argue back, Manhwa appeared. Young-hyuk looked away from her and asked Manhwa where on earth he had found Wujin. She nervously listened as Manhwa replied that he didn't even remember how many times he had been asked that question today. Young-hyuk was confused, so Manhwa explained that Wujin's acting was extraordinary and his past was unclear. He had also looked into it a bit and was leaning toward the possibility of Wujin being from overseas. Young-hyuk asked if that really meant his acting was self-taught. Manhwa replied, true, and that even he could probably sense that Wujin himself was an existence that didn't make sense. He was just someone born to act. Young-hyuk suddenly stood up, saying that was absurd. Manhwa asked him if he was leaving already. Young-hyuk explained that he couldn't just sit there and enjoy himself. He was going to practice more. The lead couldn't be overshadowed by the supporting role. Everyone got motivated and stood up, saying they should review the script again too. Manhwa thought that Wujin had ignited everyone's passion, and the quality of the drama would now rise by several levels. He wondered if Wujin knew how much of an impact his presence would have now that he had just revealed himself. On the other hand, as usual, Wujin was peacefully dreaming about eating food. He was gloomy because he had slept all day and in the end couldn't eat the beef. He was just trying to make a living by acting and putting up a tough act. Hyeon noticed that he looked colder than usual and wondered if he hadn't recovered from the emotions of assistant manager Park. She asked him where he lived and said she would drive him home. He thought he would gladly accept it and said that it was on the Suji side. Then, she requested that he please come on in. He was excitedly thinking that it was so sweet of Hyeon to be escorting him, but when he entered the car, he saw Choi Sung there, who asked if they could talk for a moment. Hyeon introduced him as her company's CEO. Wujin realized that he was the one who had invested in the detective agency and wondered if that meant he was like the landlord of a building. He was confused about what was going on internally and replied that he was sure. Choi Sung introduced himself as the CEO of BW Entertainment and mentioned that, coincidentally, they already had a connection. Choi Sung told him that he knew they had invested in the detective agency and said he was looking forward to working with him on the detective agency. Wujin wondered if this was about the detective agency. Choi Sung frankly informed him that he knew he didn't have an agency yet and mentioned that he personally wanted to be with him from his starting point as an actor. Wujin asked if he was offering a contract. Choi Sung agreed, saying that their company was small enough to look like a one-person agency for Hong Hyeon, but their startups operated on a different level. Choi Sung told him that this was a time when he needed focused care rather than a distributed approach and added that the entertainment world was like a jungle. One wrong move, and an actor's career might be blown away. Worried, Wujin thought that the entertainment industry was indeed brutal. He wondered how he should respond but decided to answer confidently and said that the jungle sounded great. Surprised, Choi Sung thought that he had been trying to warn him about the risks, but Wujin was different for sure. He wondered what kind of past Wujin had for him to be so firm. Choi Sung tried to convince Wujin by saying that if he agreed to join them, he would make sure he received detailed and thorough care, and added that he must have received a lot of business cards. Wujin agreed. Choi Sung asked if they had mentioned the down payment too. Wujin thought that no one had mentioned it, but remembered that they did talk about the conditions. He decided to answer vaguely, and said that he thought he had heard some unconventional conditions. Choi Sung nervously replied that he would match those conditions, and at least hoped he could hear their conditions as well. Wujin felt like things had gone out of hand again, but he knew that if he hesitated, his tough act would fail. He had no choice and told Choi Sung that he would think about it and contact him later. Finally, Wujin was at home. He was lying on his comfortable bed, and he had expected to receive offers to join an agency someday. Now that the time had come, it had become troublesome because he couldn't choose which one to pick. Since the shooting of Detective Agency would start soon, he decided to think about it after it ended. He needed to experience it first. He entered the subspace, and when he was about to start, he was shocked to see that profiler Hanryang was now grade S. He was confused as to why it had suddenly increased again. He was sure it was A+ before the script reading. He thought he must have been unaware of something that had happened. Anyway, the script reading for Detective Agency started, and the reading began. Time passed by, and it was the first shoot of Detective Agency. Wujin was standing before a villa which looked the same as he had seen while experiencing it in the subspace. Then, one of the staff members asked if he was an actor and told him all the actors were on standby over there. He wondered if they were the actors who would appear in Detective Agency along with him, and he felt a little nervous. He told himself not to forget to act tough. Then two actors were talking about the weather, and Wujin overheard them and started laughing. One of them asked if he had seen the actor who would play the wife. The other one was a little curious too, and wondered why she wasn't there yet. A girl then told them that the lead actor of Detective Agency was unknown. Wujin wondered why they were suddenly talking about him. The other man said that the director was famous and that the project was for the Mise-en-Scene Short Film Festival, but he doubted it because the lead actor was unknown. The girl said that the investor was likely an entertainment company that had set conditions for the director. Wujin, like a mob, thought there were no conditions, though. One of the men was jealous because he also wanted to play a lead role using the investment money. Then another man said the main actor wasn't there yet. Wujin thought it was disrespectful and put up a tough act as the monstrous actor who didn't care. He added that they would end up arguing if he openly picked fights or caused harm to them. Then Dongchan arrived and told them the briefing would begin soon. He called the main actor and told him he should get ready too. They were all shocked when Wujin got up behind them and said, "Yes, director." The previous man was worried, thinking Wujin was angry. Wujin thought it was better to correct what was wrong and told him he was not with any agency. But he thought that it was definitely a warning and tried to apologize. Dongchan was confused and asked if something was wrong. Wujin replied that he thought there was a misunderstanding and told him not to worry about it. Behind Wujin, someone walked towards him, asking what the misunderstanding was. It was Hyeon. She took off her glasses and asked him to tell her about it too. The previous men were surprised by her appearance. Dongchan introduced Hyeon to them, saying everyone must be surprised, and that she would be playing the wife role. They couldn't believe it. She then said they would meet again and told him that they had been seeing each other quite often. When they heard that, they wondered in shock who the hell he was. Dongchan said that Hyeon's participation would remain a secret until the movie's release due to a confidentiality clause and requested that they keep it a secret. He mentioned that, excluding Hyeon, everyone else would stay at a nearby dorm for 5 days, and if anyone couldn't make it, they should inform the production team in advance. He then said from today they should do their best to stick to the schedule. He told Wujin to please get his makeup done by this person. The first scene would be a solo cut, and they were going to start with the cut of him entering the villa first. Wujin was starting to get nervous since it was his first shooting. It was even worse because he was the lead actor. While they were doing his makeup, he was thinking. First, he needed to maintain his tough act. He should deceive himself first. Hyeon appeared out of nowhere behind him and said in his ear, "Have you considered it, about our agency?" He replied that he was thinking of joining one after detective agency ended. She said then, it meant he hadn't attended any meetings regarding it yet, and asked if he had any conditions in mind. Internally, he thought there was no way he had any, but he replied that he wasn't sure. She told Wujin that actors were like a product too. When discussing something with a company, it was better for them to set their own worth. She left, saying he should think about it and tell her later. She wished him good luck with the shooting. He thought she should at least tell him how to set his worth too. He decided to focus on the shooting first. Now, he just needed to pull off the lead role of detective agency, Kim Ryujin. He needed to make it more vivid than during the script reading since he needed to move around instead of just sitting. He recalled all the senses he had experienced during the reading in the subspace. This time, he became the main character of detective agency, Kim Ryujin. He was excited to see what kind of acting Wujin would show in the actual shooting. The shooting began, but Wujin suddenly stumbled and fell to the ground. He thought it reminded him of Kim Ryujin's personality traits. Hyeon agreed internally, noting that Kim Ryujin's character was supposed to have a slightly sloppy and clumsy feel to him. Hyeon then silently noticed other actors complimenting Wujin. She observed that he not only had the dedication to plan ad-libs to improvise movements, but also the intuition to enhance the character's personality. She thought that with acting that great, he would be fine even without doing something like that. She also wondered if he wasn't just like a cheat code character. Wujin, on the other hand, had really tripped by mistake and fallen down, feeling embarrassed.